Welcome back to Weekends with Alex Witt. We're following this developing tragic story from New York. New Yorkers are mourning the deaths of two police officers who were gunned down and killed yesterday as they sat in a patrol car on a Brooklyn street. Police Commissioner William Bratton described what happened.
Today, two of New York's finest were shot and killed with no warning, no provocation. They were quite simply assassinated. Officer Liu and Officer Ramos never had the opportunity to draw their weapons. They may never have actually even seen their assailant, their murderer.
Police said the gunman shot and killed himself as he was pursued by other officers. Late last night, fellow officers saluted as the bodies of their fallen comrades were taken from Brooklyn's Woodhull Hospital. Officers had rushed to the hospital as they heard of the shooting. The city has not yet announced any memorial plans. Joining me now, Jason Johnson, professor of political science at Hiram College. Jason, with a welcome to you. Since the Eric Garner grand jury decision, there's been quite a rift between some police officers and Mayor Bill de Blasio over comments that he made following the decision about what he tells his son when interacting with police. Here is what the spokesman of the Policemen's Benevolent Association said last night.
There's blood on many hands tonight. Those that incited violence on the street under the guise of protest, that tried to tear down what New York City police officers did every day. We tried to warn, it must not go on. It cannot be tolerated. That blood on the hands starts on the steps of City Hall in the office of the mayor.
This statement was released on behalf of Mayor de Blasio, responding to those comments, which reads, quote, "It's unfortunate that in a time of tragedy, some would resort to irresponsible, overheated rhetoric that angers and divides people. Mayor de Blasio understands this is the time when we must come together to support the families and friends of those brave officers New York City lost tonight and the entire NYPD community." How troubling, if at all, is this link being made by the police, Jason?
I think it's incredibly troubling because we're not done with the investigation. Look, it's clear it is a tragedy that these two officers were assassinated, but this person was a crazy wingnut. And to associate him with any protest one way or another, first off, he shot his girlfriend, he had drug problems, he drove from Baltimore all the way into New York City. There's a lot of things that need to be decoupled from this. So for the police or the policemen's union to start throwing out incredibly caustic and dangerous rhetoric at the mayor, it doesn't help the investigation and it doesn't help heal the city.
Okay. I want to read part of a statement that this one comes from the executive director of colorofchange.org. And here this reads, "We caution the efforts by police unions and others to draw misleading connections with this tragedy to the growing nationwide movement to hold officers accountable." Is it inevitable, though, Jason, for the general public to try to connect the dots in some way here?
I mean, that's irresponsible to do so. There's tons of people in America who say abortion is murder, but I don't necessarily link them to a crazy person who wants to kill an abortion doctor. There were people at the Clive and Bundy Ranch who ended up shooting police officers in Las Vegas. I mean, you can't take every crazy person who tries to attach themselves to a movement and then use that to sort of distract or in any way sort of harm a larger movement. So, people who want to make that connection, maybe that works for them ideologically, but on a practical level and a functional level, there's no connection to be made between these horrible murders and the people out there protesting peacefully for months on end.
I talked with Clint Van Zandt earlier. He's a former FBI profiler, and he suggested that all this heightened rhetoric, that's what attracts this fringe element.
There's a possibility of that, but the problem is, what kind of heightened rhetoric are we really talking about? Look, now there were some reports that you had people saying, they wanted dead police officers. Obviously that's wrong, and the vast majority of protesters aren't calling for that. But again, it's like the example I give with abortion. If you say that abortion is murder, does that lead to some crazy person going and killing an abortion doctor? We can't blame people for properly and peacefully protesting for the ways in which some fringe will take care of it. That would actually eliminate our ability to protest in this country just because one or two crazy nutbags decides that they want to take it too far.
Congressman Gregory Meeks, he was on the program a short while ago, and he said that there's no place for violence or for rhetoric of violence in this debate. Let's listen to part of what he said.
We should all be coming together to make sure that we call out and as sharper terms as we can against the type of violence or any violence, because every life matters. And that's the message should be, that every life matters.
Is the congressman being realistic that the community and police can find some common ground? Can the goals be achieved without violence?
The goals can be achieved without violence, but I think the congressman, and Alex, you know, I understand the congressman's sincerity in saying all lives matter, but we need to decouple this. We need to be very clear. This man who was crazy went and killed 2 police officers. Had he not died, he would have been arrested and he would have been prosecuted. The concern that protesters are expressing is that in instances where unarmed people may die in a conflict with the police, they're concerned that those issues are not being investigated at the same level. So we can't conflate the behavior of one crazy person to a larger protest movement that's going on across the country, and to confuse the two or to claim that these in any way work together, I think that does a disservice to the public narrative.
Okay, Jason Johnson, I'm always glad to get your insights. Thanks.
Thanks, Al.
And the Brooklyn Nets will be honoring those 2 slain officers